Hi everyone, Anthony here with People Talk, and I'm talking to Jan and Nancy, and they're from Southern California. We're going to hear their opinions on the upcoming presidential race, which is only 18 days away as of today. So welcome Nancy, welcome Jan.
Hi. Hi.
Now let's start with Nancy. Are you a registered, which party are you registered with?
I am at this point registered with the Republican Party.
Okay.
However, I have been on the other side through the years. Through the years, I more or less looked at the man who was running, and I can go back to Kennedy. When he was running, I mean, oh my gosh, there was nothing in this world greater than Kennedy. I shook his hand, and I didn't wash it for a month and a half, When Reagan came along, they had a charisma that drew you in. However, in today's election, I really do consider myself a conservative. So I don't know. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a liberal. Okay.
So you're undecided at this point?
No, I know who I cannot vote for, but I'm just wrestling with a lot of issues, I guess.
Okay, so we won't call you an undecided voter. Okay. How about you, Jan?
Undecided. I am a registered Democrat. I haven't always been a registered Democrat. Like Nancy mentioned, in my younger days, I couldn't vote until I was 21. Back then in the 70s. I would also look at the candidates and try to make a decision and a connection to the character of the person and so forth. And that's how I really did it. But in all honesty, in my younger days, I was never as passionate about understanding all that's going on politically. So like the younger people today or the young families today, so often they don't get a chance to investigate as much as someone like myself who happens to be retired. But what I have noticed that if I go back through the years, I just simply gravitated towards the Democratic Party mainly because of their platform, the issues that they fought for. Okay. Especially something like civil rights.
Right. So then your choice for president of the United States for November?
Definitely Hillary Clinton.
And Nancy?
I'm tending more toward Trump, I guess.
Okay. So we have one Trump and one Hillary vote. Okay, good. And Jan, why would you vote for Hillary? What type of things have you decided would help the country with her?
Well, unlike many people who feel like we should blow up the whole political system and start from scratch again, I really feel that kind of mindset is mostly an emotional reaction to so many of the difficulties that people are going through with the economy and the strife over, the global situation and so forth. And this idea of embracing someone just because they are the element of change, to me, does not make sense without someone really being vetted to the point where that change is actually going to be for the good. Change for change's sake doesn't always work out.
Okay. All right. And Nancy, your choice is Donald Trump. How come?
Well, in the beginning, he seemed to come out of the box, and he was not the typical politician. And for me, what goes on in Washington is just a bunch of politicians, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. Spoke what he was thinking. He spoke what I think a lot of Americans were thinking. And I think that people got very emotional about that and excited about it, because here was somebody who wasn't afraid to speak up. I wish I could use a few words here that you probably don't want on there, but he is really, neither one of them are, as far as I'm concerned, moral or ethical. And he has gotten worse as the campaign has gone on. I'd like to take him aside and teach him how to speak at a debate and not criticize and, dig things up. But I can't vote on the other side either.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's a tough one. What about you, Jan? What is it about Hillary that you think is your choice?
Well, I strongly believe that this hatred, and they do use the word hatred towards Hillary, is much the result of the conspiracies around the Clintons that have been promoted by the far right, such as Breitbart, the alt-right, whatever the different terms that they use to describe them. And if people did a little bit of research historically, that group has been around as long as the Clintons have been involved in politics, and they have been repeatedly put under investigation for one thing or another. Now, I'm not going to argue which ones were merited and which ones weren't, but the thing of it is that we have gone over this, and she goes through
Can you be specific?
Okay. I would say
the emails, the foundation.
Right. The one that bothers me the most is the Benghazi one. And when I look at that, you have to recognize that she is being criticized for making a decision that was not a unilateral decision on her part. Yes, she was Secretary of State, but she didn't just say, okay, this is how we're going to deal with Libya, all by her lonesome kind of thing.
So she gets all the blame.
And she gets all the blame. Okay. And I don't understand why people don't recognize that when people are leaders, whether it be Secretary of State or a president and so forth, they're put in such horrendous positions to make, very difficult decisions. And if you just look historically at every president, even you mentioned Reagan and you mentioned JFK, and if you know historically, both of them did some big bad decisions. The missile crisis and the Iran-Contra thing with him.
Justified the way she's being criticized.
Right. I don't think that and they always say, 4 people died and so forth, and then they forget we went through a 10-year war in Iraq under false pretenses or incorrect information. Right. So
let me ask Nancy about some of the things that Trump's been accused of. One of them is women, the issues with women he's had. Do you think he has a problem with women in terms of how he treats them, his experience with them? Because they say he treats them as objects and so on. What do you think of that?
He has denied these accusations. I mean, he has said that Hillary's group has brought these women up and they're the ones that are presenting them. I really don't know if he has done these things. I really don't know. He can get up there and he could lie, or maybe he's telling the truth. I don't know. However, when Bill Clinton went through his little escapades, you know how long that lasted? Probably lasted 2 weeks, and the American people were like, oh, that's over and done with. Let's move on. And so now it's Trump's turn to receive these kinds of things. And I don't see any difference from Bill Clinton to what he's doing.
Let's move on to the big topic of, there's several topics. The immigration is one. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on the immigration policy?
This business of building a wall, it's not just so much the ideas that he has, but the way he frames them. And just saying to his solid base, we're going to build a wall and we're going to get Mexico to pay for it. And we're going to round up all these people and we're going to deport them. And it has an emotional response with the base. And part of it is because they, I fully believe there's a great deal of bigotry and prejudice wrapped up in all of this.
So it's racially...
I don't know. You have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see that. And the thing of it is, people are okay with just feeling that and wanting it, but never thinking about how do you even do this? How do you pay for it? What are the consequences of rounding up families, and taking children out of their schools and so forth? And I don't know why they don't think any further than that. They just want it. They just want that emotional release of, we're going to take care of you.
Let me ask Nancy. Jan just outlined Trump's immigration policy, more or less. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, what is hard to believe when you say something is illegal? Illegal is illegal. And these millions of people are here illegally. Our forefathers and our aunts and uncles and grandmothers, they went through a process. And sometimes it took them a long time to go through that process. Some of them were sent home because they had diseases or whatever. And so these people are here and they're getting freebies. They're getting freebies all over the place. They're being given food and clothing and lodging. And a lot of these families have been dispersed in the country, so to round them up would be impossible because there's a Privacy Act here. You can't delve into their privacy and the families. And so to round up these millions of people, I see as just about impossible. But we're not vetting these people who are coming in. They're not being screened. I just came back from Ireland, and you can't imagine what I went through to get through customs. And I'm an American citizen. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I wonder if these people are going to go through this very same thing. Are they going to go through their luggage? Are they going to screen their bodies and what have you? I don't know. It's happening very fast. And the latest I heard was that Obama wanted to pass citizenship on 100,000 people before the election.
Okay.
So I wonder why that's happening.
Okay. And what about the Syrian issue? We're getting possibility of those people coming to this country. We have a quota for that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, from some of the information that I looked into, the people who, again, are doing primarily an emotional response to all of this, should look into the fact that we have a rather severe vetting process, especially for people coming from Syria. Now, when Nancy was speaking of illegals, perhaps she was referring more to people that don't even come up against any kind of vetting process because they're going across the border secretively and so forth. But the ones that are coming from the Middle East, they go through at least a 2-year vetting process before they can get in here. That whole business of making sure that if we do have in place lawful vetting process, are they actually taking place to the degree that they have to? That would be the first thing that would happen.
So I guess you're both saying is that we have to look at the policies involved in the immigration process. It should be tighter, it should be more control, and maybe we can change things. Yes?
We have laws in place already. We just have to follow them.
That's what I was kind of saying.
They're just not being followed. They're just being overlooked. Their heads are turning. They're ignoring some of it.
Oh, where do you get that information from?
From, well, the border, the things that are going on down around the border.
But that's not, the vetting's not going on at the border in Mexico. But the Syrians coming through, the vetting is going on.
Can I ask her a question on this?
Sure.
She said they started coming 2 years ago. I wasn't aware that 2 years ago we had this problem. I thought it just was something
I
more
said
recent.
it takes 2 years to be vetted. That's how long the process takes.
Well, then Obama can't have those people with citizenship before the election, because that won't have been 2 years.
I thought you were speaking of the Mexican illegals.
All right.
You were talking about Syria?
Well, obviously, you both have different opinions on this. There are existing laws, excuse me, and things haven't changed. People still complaining on both sides of the parties. Let's go with another question. What about the Black community? African American communities make up 13% of the population of the United States. Yet they're still in economic situations that they're not getting any better. There's racism. There's issues with police. What's your thoughts on that? And how do you think it could change?
Well, are you going to want us to answer in regard to the ideas, the platform that Hillary is presenting in that respect,
Yes,
and
yes.
Donald Trump? I find it extremely offensive the way Donald Trump paints this dark picture of the totality of African Americans in America. And that's part of why he has so little support from the African American community. They are very upset with the fact that it's so, he makes it sound so generalized that everybody is poor. Every African American is living in a neighborhood where they're killing each other, and so forth. And yes, there are problems in the deeper, inner cities, but to use that broad brush, use it to rev people up about it, that red meat kind of stuff.
How is Hillary going to fix this?
Well, I think that she is very inclusive in her ideas of job creation, education, medical, help, and so forth. It's instead of isolating them as a segregated part of our larger community, they're going to be included in all the things that she's putting forth.
Nancy, how do you feel about that?
Well, this is probably a topic I'm not well versed on. First of all, the first thing I would do is I'd stop calling them African Americans. If they're born here, they're an American. I'm Irish, and nobody calls me an Irish American or a German American. I am an American, and we have to stop doing that. We've even had some black Hollywood stars make the very same comment. We have got to stop babying them. We have to stop calling them African Americans. They're Americans.
It seems to be an identity issue.
Yes.
Because we started with other words, coloreds, Negroes, blacks, and then African Americans. So now, and then the National Association of Colored People were calling them colored people at one point.
I remember.
And they still have the same name. So it is an identity issue. So how do we get past this?
Well, I'm not sure what the answer is to that one. I really don't. And when they talk about Black Lives Matter, I just, all lives matter. I don't care if you're yellow, red, green, whatever. All lives matter, not just black lives. And that was another thing that was pushed into the limelight, and then you became a bigot, and then you became a racist because if you didn't say that properly. Right. I just think that all lives mean they're important.
Okay, good.
I think it's another a mistake on the part of, it doesn't mean that when you say Black Lives Matter that you are excluding the fact that all lives matter. It's more Black Lives Matter too, T-O-O, meaning that they need to be fairly related to, especially in the criminal justice system, in a more equal way. And I think we've had a number of decades since the onset of the civil rights movement where things have not been just for the black communities of America. And when I hear of the incidents that happen, and not only that, what these black families have to go through when they need to specially talk to their sons and daughters, and especially their sons, that they need to be especially versed in how to behave whenever approached by a police person. And as a white person, I don't really think I can empathize with that, but I can certainly sympathize with what's going on.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask the last question, and then we'll stop. And I appreciate your time and consideration to be on People Talk. And the last question is, give 2 reasons why you're voting for Hillary and 2 reasons why you're voting for Trump.
Okay, my first one is a personal one. In my lifetime, I would like to see a woman president. And the fact that that's going to be very possible, I think, makes me very happy. And I also have appreciated some of the things that other people like to denigrate her for throughout these conspiracy theory types of things. But I have watched through the decades as she's been a part of the political system, and I'm not someone who feels like we have to dismantle the political system, but it needs to be used in the appropriate way. I do believe that she has fought for women's rights and children's rights for a number of decades.
So the second reason?
Well, those are the two.
Okay,
The first one is just
because she's a woman.
just because she's a woman. I'll say it.
Okay.
I love the fact that we're going to have a woman president.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Nancy.
I'd love to have a woman president too someday, but she wouldn't be the one. Anyways, Mr. Trump, at this point, he's not a favorite person of mine, but I think I want to take the risk because I think he has something to do. And I'm sure if he's not well versed in some area, he will surround himself with people who are in the know, whether it be foreign policy or economics, which he's fine in, but that would be my reasons.
What if Hillary doesn't get in? How would that? I know I had said one last question, but this is really important. If she doesn't win, Jan, then what for you? Are you moving to Canada?
Probably, yeah. In regard to Nancy's comment, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a response. One of my biggest reasons for being so against Donald Trump is my recognition of who are the people that Donald has been surrounding himself with in this campaign. Okay? Banyan of Breitbart, the alt-right. Roger Ailes from Fox News had to leave. He was, forced resignation, that type of thing. Rudy Giuliani. The most recent person that he brought on board was someone who has a very disreputable reputation, yet he's putting him on, managing the way Donald says that we have to watch the polls and make sure there's no fraud going on and nothing is rigged. And they're actually putting in place someone who is a very questionable person to lead this type of thing.
Okay. Nancy, if Trump loses, how's it going to affect you?
Well, Canada has an island off the coast, and they've offered it to any American or United States citizens that need to move after the election. I don't know if I should put my reservation in now or just hold off and wait.
Okay. So it's going to change your life or not?
Well, I'm a happy person, and I will forge ahead being positive,
right.
but I won't be happy about it.
All right. Well, thank you both, Jan and Nancy, for your time on People Talk. Thank you very much.